We're excited to be presenting to you our topics today. So we'll let folks continue to join and we'll get started in just a moment. Well, again, welcome. As you see, we have a beach theme today, so we hope to see you all on video so we can look at your beach or island wear attire. And as a reminder, at the end of the session, we're going to have a Guess That Beach contest. And we will be asking you to look at the backgrounds of each of us and guess which beach we are in front of or which beach you want to be at. So we look forward to that towards the end of the presentation today. Welcome as you're joining us. We're getting closer to starting, just another 1 minute. And as a reminder, today we'll be reviewing our finance portion of the exam and quality and performance management. All right, we're seeing some beaches, but be sure and when you get your beach set up or your beach wear, island wear, please come on video so we can see you. And Jennifer, we see you on a beach. All right, well, let's get started. And Nora, you want to take it away?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Yes, welcome to our 5th and final session. We hope that this has been informational for you. We put a lot of work and love into this, and it's been especially rewarding to be able to co-sponsor this with another chapter. Okay, so today we're covering finance, which is 24 questions and 12% of the exam, and quality and performance management, which is 20 questions and 10% of the exam. We were talking earlier about finance, even though it's only 12% of the exam, you know, for some of us, if we don't work in it all the time, it can be a lot of information to absorb and can be confusing. So today we have an excellent guest speaker to help walk us through that. That's one of the reasons on the pre-work, I sent out the entire presentation in addition to the recording. So hopefully you've had a chance to listen to the recording and take a look at that presentation. And in case you have any questions, our guest speaker will be able to respond to those. Next slide. And again, in case you forgot who we are, we're the California Association of Healthcare Leaders, and these are we. Okay, next slide. And here's the San Diego Organization of Healthcare Leaders. And it has truly been a joy to get to know them and to be a part of this. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we do have a couple of updates and FAQs. And in this case, there was a question about the patient bill of rights, and that came through from the professional and ethics presentation. And so Sherry was the one that put this together, that the patient's bill of rights, the name of the document that the AHA introduced in the 70s, and it was revised as recently as 1992. list of 12 expectations that you should have regarding information about your case, communications with the healthcare team, treatment, medical records, and more. So there's like 100 different references to go out and Google to help find some of this. And plus it's in the healthcare management book. Is that correct, Rick? I think I remember.
No.
Okay.
There are others that are also labeled as patient bill of rights, including a California law. But remember, you're going to have the national focus, so this would be the one to pay attention to.
And then be on the lookout for our Survey Monkey. That's coming out soon, and we really, really need to hear your feedback and recommendations if this perfect series needs to be perfected even more. Next slide. Okay, Carol.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining, and we are so happy to have Lisa here today. Lisa Thakor is a corporate senior vice president of Scripps Health here in San Diego. In addition to these accolades, Lisa holds a distinction of fellow through the American College of Healthcare Executives, as well as the Healthcare Financial Management Association. She is a certified public accountant and has previously served as the chapter president of SOL. And she has been assisting colleagues like you pass the Board of Governors exam for a very long time. Lisa has two sons. Her oldest is attending school at University of Texas at Austin, and her other son is a senior in high school this year. She enjoys traveling, hiking, and spending time with friends. Thank you, Lisa, for sharing your Saturday morning with us and for walking us through this very important knowledge area. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next slide, please. So I know that everybody received the presentation in advance. I'm going to go through these slides fairly quickly, but please stop me if you have a question in a specific area. Just let me know, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. But overall, finance is really focused in a few areas. We've got the financial accounting principles, that's around the financial reporting piece of that. We have budgeting, which includes fixed budgets, flexible budgets, which is based upon variations in volumes. And so some, for example, costs will go up or down based upon your census or other types of volumes. Zero-based, which is basically starting with kind of a clean slate on the budget and really looking at that and building it up from the bottom up. And then we have variance analysis, which then analyzes where we're at in terms of our actual financial performance compared to what we had in the budget. You also have capital budgeting, and we're going to go through a little bit of information around that piece of that. And in that piece, you talk about where the funding sources are going to come from, what the plans are, and identify how you're going to depreciate that. We also have in the exam, it'll also include some information and requests and questions around reimbursement with managed care models, other sorts of programs, and then fee for service, which is the traditional model that we all wish we could go back to, and the payers don't really see that as feasible. We see, of course, especially in California, a lot more of that managed care than some of the other areas of the country. We also look at productivity, which is based upon hours per patient day or per imaging exam, what that cost is, and then the units of service per labor hour. And then financial controls, those are really the internal systems. That's how we make sure that we have segregation of duties and that we don't have somebody that can sign a contract and also pay under that contract and so forth, so that we don't have any fraud and that type of thing. Next slide. So under revenue, there may be questions around billing and coding, pricing strategies may be one of those areas. Finance will also look at the management of identifying potential new businesses. That could be adding an additional business or additional program, clinical program, and what would be the financial implications of that. And all kinds of decision-making, financial decision-making, the operations, HR, quality of care, and so forth. The asset management gets back to the capital discussion, depreciation schedules and so forth. There may be some questions about types of depreciation. We also have our financing. Funding sources are very important in finance. And and then we get into some of the ratios associated with that. And that's how credit and bond agencies will look at different healthcare organizations based upon various ratios. And we'll talk about that in a moment as well. There's also a significant source of funding for nonprofits around philanthropy as well. And then they may touch on supply chain systems and processes, but probably not as likely in the exam as some of the other areas. Next slide. So what we'll do now is go into some questions. So the first question is that net income as a percentage of gross revenues and return on equity are the two most important indicators of, and we'll go to the next, we'll go to the answer. Profitability.
And then we're asking folks if they could walk us through why they picked that answer in terms of our brain walk too.
Okay.
Why did A stand out for you? Other than it being the right answer. If it just looked right, it looked right.
Knowing the difference between net and gross revenue. I like that. For me, any financial officer is usually focused on profits. That's so true. There's a reason why this is the first question. They are both components of profits. Right. Okay.
Good point.
We'll go to the next question. So when reviewing assets, which element is the most important indication of an organization's liquidity? We're seeing C. The answer is C. Looks like everybody got that one. And why did you, what made you pick C? Liquid is cash, right? Liquidity has to do with cash, right? So we always think about liquidity as short term. And cash, of course, is as short term as you can get. Okay,
So,
next, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So what we're seeing here is what we've been emphasizing throughout this entire series. You're looking at the questions, you're reading the questions, you're focusing on a key word or concept. And then I'm sure you've had time to apply a true false to all of these, correct? Because that's our major piece of advice. Make this as a true false. But so that's what I'm seeing, is that you're concentrating on something specific or narrowing down. And again, we're trying to get the broadest, that's the most correct. But you are focusing on the key words in those questions. So we're so proud.
Okay, next question. So financial statements are important in order to, what are your thoughts? A, I'm hearing A. Looks like everyone is looking at A. Okay. And the answer is right. So what made you choose A? It was the most comprehensive. the most global, right?
Mhm. And again, don't let too many or so many words distract you. That's another thing. If there's just so many words in a question,
Mm-hmm.
great job.
Okay, next question. So in most cases, the most favorable opinion that an organization can receive is, we're seeing D. D. Anybody have a different answer, or everybody, we have A. 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 So now we have a little difference, some differences here between A and D. This one can be a little bit tricky.
Mhm. I got that
Oh.
one wrong.
Yes, it is. It is. This one is not intuitive, and it is a very likely question. Yeah. Okay. And the answer is unqualified. And it is tricky because you would think that a qualified opinion would be the most favorable one, but it's actually an unqualified, which means qualified opinions in this circumstance actually states that you have an opinion that the financial statements are a fair representation, but it's qualified by some exception. But so the qualification is it's qualified by some exception. There's some concern. And unqualified means the statements are fair, and financial statements are fair and accurate. And and it's unqualified means there's no exception to it. This is one that can really trip people up. And it is not intuitive. So you might just want to just remember this one. Yeah, unqualified are presumed to be free of material misstatements, and it's not qualified by an exception. Great, that's a good one. Next question. So the purpose of the statement of operations or the income statement is to, so what do you have, what do you think the answer is on this one? A. 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 So far, everybody's guessing A. Okay, and the answer is, it's actually D. This is one that's very likely to be asked during the exam as well, and it's another one that does trip people up. So the financial position of an organization over a period of time is the income statement. A, the financial position of an organization at a specific point in time is actually the balance sheet. So the balance sheet, think about that, the balance sheet. If you think about your personal finances, you have cash as of a certain date, and your balance sheet includes cash. The income statement would be like if you looked at your income over a period of time, like for a month. So how much was your income over a month? And that's your income statement, and the balance sheet would be how much cash do you have on the last day of the month as of a specific point in time.
Also operations, right? So operating results.
Yes.
So try to pick words that kind of.
Right. That's a good point too, right? The
Oh,
operating
yeah.
results is over a period of time.
And I would probably also look at the keywords for which is the over a period of time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was distracted by B for a second, thinking, okay, it's going to show you how your assets have changed. But then I noticed the word, the reasons
Yes.
there. So it's not giving you the reasons, it's just giving you the numbers.
Right.
You figure out yourself.
That's a good point too. Mm-hmm. Okay, next question.
Clear case of needing to read the question and reread the
Yes.
question
Right.
and apply the
Right.
true false.
Right. So ratios that measure an organization's long-term liquidity are called. So what do you have? A, C, so we've got A or C. Another A. So most people are thinking A.
And I'd like to know why.
Why they're thinking, why do you think A? We can show the answer. It's actually C. So, and so liquidity, the liquidity ratios are focused on the what is liquid, which would be short term. And that's again something that can throw people off. Capital is always by nature long term. Nothing in capital will be short term. But when people think about liquidity, they're not always thinking about that. So anything you see about liquidity will always be short term.
So there was, yeah, the two conflicting terms, long-term and liquidity,
Yes.
you know, so that's a good question
Right.
in terms of learning how to parse that question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's another one that's very likely to be on the exam, and it's another one that people get confused by. Okay, next question. So the purpose of the strategic financial plan is to, so what do you think is the answer to this one? A, anybody else think D? Okay. D, B, D. We have lots of different answers on this one. D, 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 D. So let's go to what the answer is. It is D. So the strategic financial plan takes the strategic plan and puts it into financial terms so that you know what resources you need to accomplish your strategy. So, and it's usually, it's usually not a next year objective. It's usually a longer term objective. Usually when you're talking about 1 year, it's usually not a strategic plan. It's usually like over a longer period of time. So the future in A, it says look into the future 10 years to determine what the business will look like. You might think that that is because the strategic part is the 10-year plan, but the financial piece of that is what resources will be needed to meet the strategic plan. So again, when we talk about those words parsing, that's where it can trip people up a little bit. Any other thoughts on this one?
Yeah, for just Michael, for the I would go through you know, the selection, like translate the strategic plan into next year's objectives. I think that there's a process. It's a process of a strategic planning. And that's how I'm gonna, go through this question. And the C says convert the operating plan to intermonetary terms. This is budgeting actually. This is the definition of budgeting. So I would exclude those in my choices.
Great. Okay, next question. A zero-based plan or budget could best be described as, what do you think the answer to this one is? A, A. We got a lot of people jumping up really fast to say A. Anybody think it's something else? Okay, what's the answer? It is A. And I did say that earlier, that the zero-based plan is basically starting with a clean slate. So it really is starting with basically something that starting at the very beginning and not using it for looking at historical experience or past experience. And Mark Campbell said he was listening. I appreciate that, Mark. Nice to see you again.
So one of the things that I'm focusing in on, over the series, I've said to be careful about answers that have like qualifiers and I'm like only. So, as you do the true false, or as you're looking at each of the issues, we've got limiting department managers to only the expenses they control. Focusing in on some of those makes you have to look at it a little closer.
Right. All right, next question. So managed care plans that exert the most control over providers and therefore save the most money in provider payments are. So what do you think the answer is to that one? C, looks like everybody's picking C. Anybody picking anything else? A. Okay, and the answer is, it is C. So it's those closed panel HMOs that really save the most money in provider payments. Anybody have any reasons why they picked A or C? Or thoughts on this one?
In this case, it's clearly a case of knowing, well, if you know the definitions, it's pretty intuitive. If anybody has any questions about the different managed care plans and structures, you can reach out to me, and I can help with that.
Yeah, C is reduced risk, right? Yeah. Okay, next question. I think this is the last one. A productivity measure that takes into account the level of skill required to accomplish the task is. So what do you think the answer to this one is? B, D, 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 B, 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 D, D. So we have a lot, B or D. Okay, so the answer is, it's actually D. And this is one that can throw people off as well. So the paid hours per unit of service, that includes the hours that are worked and the hours that were not worked, your PTO and so forth. And that gives you a paid productivity level. The labor compensation per unit of service, if you are comparing the labor dollars per unit of service for example, for a food service worker, I'm just going to throw that out there, compared to a nurse, the nurse will have a higher compensation level, which is a higher level of skill. It's an indirect measure of the level of skill required because the higher compensation levels should be correlating to a higher level of skill required to accomplish the task. Any questions or thoughts on that one?
This is clearly one that I had to apply the true false, definitely, to eliminate it. And I also got hung up on B for the paid hours, and I had not realized that it includes like non-worked hours.
Right.
So thank you for that.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm
that
sorry.
was it. I think that was it. So then if anybody had any other last questions on the finance piece. Okay, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Yeah, I
Thank
am
you.
hearing that the brain walk was very useful. So thank you, Lisa. That was fabulous. I now need to go back and re-listen to your presentation.
So thank you, Lisa. And we'll spend more time too with that in Quizlet. It's a really wonderful opportunity to hear you speak the way you break it down into simple and practical explanations. So I'm going to move into our last section. Yay! We're in quality and performance management, or performance improvement, performance management. And it's the section that has the most acronyms, without a doubt, as we get through it. The things that you want to focus on in this particular section as you're studying is understanding about benchmarking principles and best practices. And we're going to, as you listened to Stan's presentation, who can describe in the chat what Stan's source of inspiration was in his opening slide? Who remembers that if they looked at Stan's wonderful presentation on quality? Anyone watch that video? Well, if you watch it, please watch it carefully. Anyone want to answer what they saw? He does a wonderful presentation, as he says, on Star Wars. So a little commercial for Stan, but he does a great job with it. And the video is very helpful. So as we look at it again, we're going to talk about benchmarking, and it's both internal, state, and national standards. So you'll need to familiarize yourself with organizations such as Leapfrog, National Quality Forum, NQF. Yes, Marquez. Thank you. In a galaxy far, far away, his classroom. Thank you. Marquez, good job. And when we look at both external and internal, we'll look at organizations such as the Institute of Medicine, the National Institute of Health, IHI, and there'll be a lot of different practices and best practices that we'll hear from those groups that you'll need to be familiar with. It's important to think about, as we've talked about in governance, and we did a great job of presenting that, Rick did, on the medical staff. And the medical staff is ultimately the source responsible for quality at any of the hospitals, institutions by their bylaws. And so understanding that makes it clear when we look at some of the questions we're going to review.
Sherry, can I interrupt something for a second?
Sure.
Board of Trustees is always ultimately responsible. So it's not the medical staff, of course, is closer to day to day, but the board is always going to have the ultimate responsibility for everything.
The final say. The medical staff kind of prepares their reports for them as well. So the knowledge of risk management is part of this program. And we'll talk about different programs that support that at the facility level, clinic level, or healthcare provider level. When we talk about risk management principles and programs, we'll talk about ways to reduce risk. That's an important concept to keep in mind. Managerial performance and process improvement tools. So when we talk about lean processing or reduce waste, you want to make yourself a little table on some of these: plan, do, study, act, plan, do, study, check, and just write out what they mean, and so that you can remember it quickly when you see them on the exam. Six Sigma, they will definitely ask a question about that. Six Sigma reduces variation. And the standard question we hear from everyone is, how many deficits per million? 3.4 has been a question on the exam for those that have reported back that they remember that particular section. So again, look at differences between lean and Six Sigma. Plan, do, study, act. Again, acronyms. So just write them out so that way it'll make sense when you see it. Utilization review and case management systems are covered as well. Looking at length of stay and different things that fold into that particular topic. Peer review will be covered as we talk about the medical staff peer review process. So that's important to review that. And as Rick said, the board of directors has the ultimate authority, but peer review is really managed by medical staff, medical to medical, in terms of physicians, and then they make the recommendation to the board. So for instance, when we talk about credentialing and different things, and how we are going to continue when a physician's practice within a medical facility, the medical staff makes a recommendation on that. So next slide, please. So clinical performance and process improvement tools and techniques. If you make a grid as well for clinical pathways, evidence-based medicine, meaning that we've seen it studied and it's been peer reviewed, and it's a body of knowledge that then can be reproduced in a hospital setting or a clinic setting, a healthcare provider setting. We'll hear a lot, and you hear a lot about population health. And as we talk about sort of the history of quality in healthcare, nothing has become more important for us than pay for performance. And it's important, if you can too, is look at timelines within our industry and kind of the evolution of quality practices. The American College of Surgeons became one of the first groups that were really focusing on quality in healthcare. And that sort of was the predecessor to the Joint Commission. So looking, this is one area where you do want to go on different websites and really look through those websites. The Joint Commission, you'll see a lot about patient safety and patient safety in terms of their latest recommendations. You'll see a lot about what they monitor within a hospital, which is important. And what was, I'm going to ask this in the chat room, what was one of the first most important payers that really wanted to know what they were getting for their buck? What were they looking at in terms of quality? What payer? And I'll have you type that in the chat room. As we look at the evolution timeline, this occurred in 1965.
Oh,
Yes, you're right. Medicare, 1965. So that's important in terms of looking at the evolution again of quality. Then another thing in terms of the evolution of quality was the report in 1999 to Error is Human by the Institute of Medicine. And they started to really look at, as in terms of performance, preventable medical errors and looking at process errors. HCAHPS came from some of the government payment interest, patient satisfaction measurements. It sort of expanded the look at quality and net promoter scores. As we look at reducing errors and avoidable errors and disclosure and different tools for that. You'll see some of those as well as in Joint Commission and some of the other Leapfrog, some of the other external websites, especially the National Quality Forum, that have provided tools. Checklists, for instance, things like timeout in the OR, pause, and different evidence-based practices, meaning they've been studied, they've been researched, they've been peer-reviewed, and these are known to reduce errors and so forth, preventable errors specifically. And this is the part I think is most important is as we look at quality as a strategic initiative for us, as a recognition of that. You know, that always wasn't the case, but certainly in the last 10, 12 years, that has become very important in our industry and also in terms of marketing and in terms of promoting either our healthcare organizations or our service lines is quality as a strategy. And when we look at it and tie it to how it does impact staffing and financing decisions and so forth, I mean, nothing more true than we looked at that as we went through the pandemic on looking at how to maintain our quality levels with such change and so forth during the pandemic. So next slide. So we'll go ahead and start some of the questions here. And I do want to add, when you look at creating a table for yourself in this particular area, there were questions too about the Donabedian model, I sometimes say that wrong, but think about structure measures, process measures, outcome measures, and balancing measures. And also, as you create your charts, look at measurement tools such as Pareto charts and control charts, because there was questions based on some of those as well. So this is a good chance as to look at just being comfortable with those specific terms. So take it away, Michael.
Oh, hi, good morning. Looks like they're answering already. And the question is, which characteristic of a high-risk process would tend to increase the risk of a process failure? A, simplicity, B, consistency, C, variability, D, automation. So it's a very simple question, and the answer is very prominent. However, we have to look at the question that says would tend to increase the risk of process failure. So that's going to be the key term for me. So simplicity, will that increase a risk? No. B, consistency? No. C, yes, that would increase a risk for that if there's a lot of variability in your process. And D, automation, definitely it would reduce risk, the automation. Let's look at the answer. Next slide, please. Yes, everyone got the answer. Yay, it's all C. Next slide.
Okay. A healthcare institution would use nationally accepted clinical benchmarks to determine what services the institution should offer to meet the needs of the area, obtain a comprehensive view of the state of the institution's business, evaluate the outcomes of a clinical process, oversee the clinical structure of the institution. Oh, I see A's and C's. Okay, let's look again. A healthcare institution would use nationally accepted clinical benchmarks. So nationally accepted clinical benchmarks, okay. Now, most people are writing C. Okay, evaluate the outcomes of a clinical process. Okay, looks like the majority of people put C. So let's see the answer. The answer is C, evaluate the outcomes of a clinical process. That makes sense. Clinical benchmarks, clinical process.
Number 3 question. So in designing a risk management program for your organization, what approach would have the most impact on reducing risk? A, developing a reporting system for medical errors and injuries to staff and visitors. B, require assessments of high-risk areas or processes within each service, department, and unit. C, use task force to address key Joint Commission standards that apply to risk management. Or D, educate staff on potential risks and patient safety practices. Okay, I can see
These.
D's. I can also see a D here. So why did you come up with B or D? So if I am looking at these questions, there's a lot of words. So I probably, do a slow to really understand what's really the theme of it. So and for me, it looks like everything, all the selections are appropriate. However, what is the best answer here? The most appropriate of reducing risk management, it says risk management program for your organization. So the answer would be, let's look at the next slide for the answer. It's B. So it says require assessments of high risk areas or processes within each service, department, and unit. This is the best because it would identify all the critical processes and activities that are, that are in the areas or units that needs improvement to prevent future adverse events. So this is more inclusive, more global, purpose of your management or RIDGE management program.
And somebody said assessment first, so that's
correct. Yeah.
two. First assess.
You assess first. Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Marcus, for that. Next question.
In conducting a risk assessment, what would be the first action to take? Identify the steps in the process of concern, identify what could fail in the process, identify causes of failure in the process, identify priorities for action. I see A's. So we're doing a risk assessment. What do you do first? We said we'd assess, right? So identify the steps in the process. So most people put A. So, okay, let's see it. We're right. A, identify the steps in the process of concern. So figure out what the steps are. That's an assessment. And then go
Can
from
I
there.
say something on this? The identify the steps in the process of concern. So what tool are you going to be using to identify that? So the best tool that you're going to be using for identifying the process of concern is the flow chart. So exactly. Thank you, Jennifer. You're correct. Flow chart.
Very good. Yep, a workflow.
Yeah. Because the flow chart would assess everything, it will identify duplications and some redundancies in your process. Thank you. Great. Question number 5. So your medical staff on the general medicine unit has been complaining about the delays in the administration of medications. You study the processing times on other units and indeed find that the general medical unit times are considerably longer. What would be your first step to take? A, implement best practices from other units. B, have the manager from the highest performing unit assist the general medical unit in its improvement efforts. C, establish benchmarks for processing times across the organization. D, organize a process improvement team on the general medical unit. Okay, I can see some D's here.
Lots of D's.
D, yeah, lots of D's. So yeah, D. So why is that? Anybody can put their reason why D in the chat box. Exactly, engages those involved in process become empowered to create change. Yes.
Can I point something else out on this one? I think this is the first one we've seen that is more of a scenario-based question instead of specifically the knowledge. And it's just my impression that there's more of those in quality. I could be wrong, but it just seems like that's where you see them.
Yeah. Okay, and the answer is D. That is correct. So yeah, you have to create a charter first in your department to determine the system-specific issues. Then most of the selections like A, B, C can be done post-implementation, right? Because once you have identify your issues, you can implement some best practices. So you have to start with the charter first, or the team in that department to create a change or to lead the change. Thank you. Next question.
Okay. What tool is most appropriate in identifying priorities for action? A flow chart, cause and effect diagram, a Pareto chart, or a run chart? All right, see, Pareto. Okay. Anybody want to tell me why? Most people said C. I think somebody said A. Yeah, the 80-20 rule. Very good. Let's see, what is the answer? Pareto chart, yes.
Yeah, for these questions, I think there's still, you need to have the basic knowledge of the base, all the tools, like all of this, like run chart. So what's the purpose of the run chart? So it's usually, it is used to show changes over time. If you're monitoring your process improvement, run chart is the best tool to use, to monitor the performance improvement process.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a great opportunity to just take and make your own diagram or your own table on flowchart, cause effect, Pareto, which is frequency of defects, and run chart, and then control chart. When do you use a control chart? We'll ask folks that. If you've done something in your organization. Anyone got a guess? Even guess. We'll take a guess. If you've made a process change. So, and that's important because they will definitely, there'll be some questions around that, process changes and process measures. So if you've made a process change control chart. So like Michael said, and great example is to just write the answer next to each one of those. Another question I wanted to ask the group is, we're all familiar with Don Berwick's triple aim, improving the patient experience, safety, improving population health, reducing costs. But more recently, the quadruple aim has come out, which I think is really important, the fourth aim. And can anyone please type in what they know to be the fourth aim of the quadruple aim? I have a particular passion for this area, specifically after this last year in our healthcare history. Yeah. Provider joy, yeah, that's provider satisfaction.
See, I learned something new every time.
Improving the work life of providers and staff, and it's both physicians and clinicians, so appreciate it. Thank you. All right, quality and performance management, you've done it. Now we'll go to Quizlet.
Question, I think we have more question.
Yeah, two more.
Two more. So
oh, I apologize.
Yeah, question number 7. So what approach best ensures loyalty, return visits by patients to your organization? Patient satisfaction surveys, patient engagement, an effective complaint resolution process, customer service training. I can see B here. Yeah, B. Yeah. Yep. Mostly B, and the answer is, next slide, B, patient engagement. Good. Next question.
What actions should you take to ensure that all critical activities associated with care of a patient are being carried out in the right sequence in your organization? institute clinical practice guidelines, develop clinical pathways, institute a disease management program, develop an evidence-based management program. Okay, so what would be the best answer here? To ensure that all critical activities associated with the care of a patient are being carried out in the right sequence. Any ideas there? Okay, we have a couple of A's. We have a B. Let's see. So A, B. Looks between A or B. Institute clinical practice guidelines, develop clinical pathways. Okay. So anyone want to share why they have chosen A or chose B? No. Okay. Start with practice guidelines via A, then sequencing is specified in B. Okay, that's great. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, let's see what the answer is. The answer is B, develop the keyword sequence equals pathways from Mark. Okay, sequence equals pathways. So develop clinical pathways, then practice the guidelines. Okay.
Can I say something on this? So I would probably also be choosing between A and B because it's almost similar. But the difference is it says the Institute Clinical Practice Guidelines, mostly the clinical practice guidelines, it will provide you a general approach to treating patients for the physicians, like what are the proper tests or procedures that needs to be done. So that's the practice guidelines.
Yeah, good point, Maria. The keyword she suggests is critical here. So critical activities to develop the clinical pathways. Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Great.
Great job.
Okay, I think at this point we want to do the Quizlet first, and then I'll finish up with the closing comments at the end.
We have Quizlet.
Oops. I'm just sharing my Quizlet. There you go. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Let's start with the finance. Let's go down and look at the finance there. So we will probably answer around 5 to 10, five multiple choice and 5 true or false. Is that right? Is that okay? In
That's
terms of time?
So again, I'm not getting paid by ACHE, so this is a strictly not unbiased opinion. Flashcards are a game changer. The fact that you can do these tests is great, and these are up-to-date questions. So,
okay. So question number 1: an entry to the patient ledger of the charge for a specific healthcare service no longer a meaningful measure. A, net revenue, or B, operating revenue, C, gross revenue, D, balance sheet.
I got 1 C, 2 C's. 2 people put C. Okay, we can go with that. 3 C's. Okay, let's go with C. Go on.
Okay. Question number 2. Ratios that measure an organization's long-term liquidity by measuring a variety of relationships to capital. A, asset efficiency ratios, sensitivity analysis, capital structure ratios, or profitability ratios.
C, D, C. All C's again. Okay, let's go.
Great.
It is.
Let's look. Let's get C. Number 3. An organization that controls the access to and the cost and quality of healthcare. Diagnosis-related group, managed care organization, revenues, accounts payable.
We have B so
Okay.
far. Anyone else? B, B, okay, a few Bs. Let's go with B.
Let's go with the B. Economic obligations or debts that are due within 1 year. A, current procedural terminology, differential costing, discrete budgets, or current liabilities.
We have D, D, D. We have Ds. Current liabilities. Okay. D.
We'll take D.
We'll take D.
And next question. Fraud is an intentional misrepresentation of fact designed to induce reliance by another. Abuse in an intentional misrepresentation of fact. Operating income per diagnosis rate, fraud and abuse, flexible budgets.
We have Cs. All the way down. C, C, C.
All the way down C.
Fraud and abuse it is. Okay.
Okay. True or false? Number 1, programs that reward healthcare providers with incentive payments for the quality of care they deliver to Medicare beneficiaries is called sensitivity analysis. True or false?
We have false for so far. False. We have a few false choices. False. It will go false and go on.
Okay, false. Funded depreciation, philanthropy, operating surpluses, and debt are called 4 ways to financial capital expenditures. True or false?
We have false, false, false. We have false.
Okay, we'll take
One
false.
true, one true, and the rest are false.
We'll take false then, right? More false?
Yeah, we'll go with false. There is more false than trues.
Okay. Donor restricted net assets that an organization can use for the donor's specific purpose after the organization has met the donor's restriction, such as the passage of time or an action by the organization, is called temporarily restricted net assets.
Okay, we have true, false. Anyone else? True? True. We have more truths than false.
Okay, we'll take true.
Okay.
Process of restructuring transaction data to support monitoring, planning, setting expectations, and improving performance of accountability centers is called differential costing.
All right, nothing yet. Okay, oh, we have a false, a false. A few false, let's go with that, yep.
False, okay.
I didn't understand any of that, so I need to study that one.
Yeah.
Of course. And the last true or false. The practice of an employer making a contractual agreement directly with an integrated delivery service system to deliver health services to employees is called transfer pricing. True or false?
We have a false, false, false. We have falses here. Okay, yep.
Yeah,
False.
false. Okay, let's check our answers. Okay, and survey says, ta-da.
No, we did.
So we did gross revenue is correct. Capital structure ratio is correct. Managed care organization is correct. Current liability is correct. And the last one, fraud and abuse, is correct. For the true or false, Number 1 is false. Number 2 is the correct answer should be true instead of false. It should be 4 ways to finance capital expenditures. Number 3 is true, and number 4 is true. It's correct, and 5 is correct.
Well,
So we got 9 out of 10, 90%. Yay!
Yes.
So let's go to the quality and quality body of knowledge. Let's go back to the main menu.
Oh, we have a question here. Explain number 2. Can you pull that test back up?
Oh, okay.
I think once it's closed, if
Yeah.
it goes away. Was number 2 about the 4 ways to finance capital expenditures? Is that what that one was? I can't remember. Sorry.
No,
Oh, it was that one.
it was that one.
Yeah. In my mind, the way to think of it, it was one way. It was one of 4 ways. I mean, let me rephrase that. It was several ways to do that. And it didn't say it was the only ways. But it seemed to be the broadest answer. I don't know if that helps.
Well, I mean, it's also just a question of knowing it, and it's going to be a finance issue, but in the private sector, you can either borrow money or have investment, and public sector, or nonprofits, you can also have donations, and then so those 3 seem real straightforward. It's the funding, the funded depreciation always loses me, so I wasn't sure on that one, but the other 3 I felt secure about. And if I was taking the test, I probably would have said, all right, 3 out of 4, yeah, maybe.
Good point. That was a good brain lock.
Okay. So we'll proceed to quality and performance management. Question number 1 for quality and performance management: evaluation of patients' medical and psychosocial needs for the purpose of determining the type of care they will need after discharge from a healthcare facility. A, clinical paths. B, quality assurance. C, a fishbone diagram. D, discharge planning.
I have D. I have several Ds already, so let's go with D.
Okay. D. Number 2, a performance improvement approach aimed at eliminating waste, also called lean manufacturing or lean thinking. Yeah. Lean, Pareto chart, rapid cycle improvement, core measure project. This question is pretty much very, it exposes the answer there. So
We have A and 1 C and mostly A's, so let's go with A.
okay. An entity or business with systems in place that are exceptionally consistent in accomplishing goals and avoiding potentially catastrophic errors. A, 8 types of waste, MUDA, eliminated during lean projects, high reliability organization, benchmarking, clinical practice guidelines.
Mostly B, we have mostly B's, high reliability organization. That's, and 1 D, but mostly B's. B.
Okay. A framework for displaying system-level performance measures, a component of a structured performance management system that aligns an organization's vision and mission with operational objectives. A, medically necessary. B, clinical paths. C, utilization review. D, balance scorecard.
We have mostly D's so far, a few D's. D's. Okay, balanced scorecard it is. Okay, D.
Okay. Let's take balanced scorecard. Healthcare that is safe, effective, patient-centered, timely, efficient, and equitable. Continuous quality improvement, quality planning, quality management cycle, 3 activities, or 6 quality aims, Institute of Medicine. I think Sherry mentioned about this several times.
We have a couple of Ds. Yep. Okay.
D, okay, let's take D. True or false? Number 1, the Healthcare Services Research arm of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the lead federal agency for research on healthcare quality, cost, outcomes, and patient safety, is failure mode and effects analysis. True or false?
We have false, mostly false.
Okay. Number 2, analyzing performance of various processes and improving them repeatedly to achieve quality objectives is called root cause analysis. True or false?
We have a couple of false. We have mostly false.
3, graphic representation of a process is called flowchart.
True. Mostly trues. Let's go with true.
Okay, true. 4, descriptions of key patient care interventions for a condition, including diagnostic tests, medications, and consultations, which, if completed as described, are expected to produce a desired outcomes, called clinical paths. True or false?
Okay, true. We have some trues. Yep. True. Yep, everyone's saying true. Okay.
The last question for true or false is the minimum acceptable or desired level of quality is called performance expectations.
True.
True?
True. Yep.
Take true. Okay. Let's
True.
check our answers. Okay. And discharge planning is correct. Lean is correct. High reliability organization is correct. Balance scorecard is correct. And 6 quality aims, Institute of Medicine is correct. Yay.
Good job.
Good job, everyone. And the true or false? The correct answer is false. So what it should be?
That's what it's supposed to be.
Yes.
Correct.
Oh, I'm thinking about, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about AHRQ. So yeah, you're right. So it's false. Correct. True. True. And true.
Yay, we got them all right. Good
Yeah.
job.
You guys are amazing.
So I'm questioning about now. I'm asked. My question for number 1 is, what is the department research arm of the U.S. Department of Health and Services that performs research on healthcare quality, cost, outcomes, and patient safety? It is. I think it is sometimes it is answer.
Institute of Research.
Institute of Medicine.
AHRQ.
RQ, yeah.
Yeah. That the correct answer for that is AHRQ. I think that will come out in the exam.
Mhm.
Oh,
As
okay.
well as asking about failure modes and effect analysis
Mhm.
and RCA. So that's good. We had that, and FADE. So they'll ask us to, they'll be asked about different meanings for each of those. So this is a good opportunity because you'll get exposed to different terms that you can write down and then become more familiar with it. So it's always nice to have this option.
Great.
Hey, Michael, before we go to closing comments, which I'm going to slam through really quick, can you show your BOG exam score?
Oh, okay.
So that you can show basically what it'll look like.
How it looks like. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Just.
This is the one that I got when I took the exam. This is the one that it automatically printed out once I submitted all my answers. So this is the paper that I got. Performance says exam pass. So you are graded based on what you answered correctly, based on the different value of knowledge. So if you can see on my result here, I have, most of the one that I have is more than 70%. And I have like 1, 2, 3 opportunities for improvement here, which is the governance and organizational structure. I got more between 50% to probably that is 60%. And the quality and performance management, same between 50 to 60% probably, and professional and ethics. So how it's calculated? Let's take an example for the business. It's a healthcare knowledge. So the knowledge of healthcare knowledge comprises 17% of the questions. So we have 200 questions, correct? So times 17% of that is 34 questions that are being asked. So my performance is around more than 70% or 75%. So let's take, for example, 34% of 75% is 26 correct answers. So that's how you are graded actually. So you do need to pass in each areas, but it's based on the cumulative grading.
Can we emphasize that you don't have to be perfect in everything?
Yeah.
Just be really good overall. On the other hand, I always, I'm scared when I see someone did really bad on ethics.
That's true.
I'm going to watch you closely, Michael. Not that you did really bad, but
Okay.
Thank you for that. And
Thanks,
we're running out of time, so let me blast through the closing comments. I'm not going to go slide by slide. A lot of those you've seen before. So the goal of this entire series was not to teach you everything that you need to know, but to give you the resources and to understand how the exam is structured. Granted, the questions will be newer now. And Sherry had a good point where it'll point, Quizlet will point out new definitions that, we didn't cover. I've been honored to be in the presence of all of you. Our guest speakers have just been phenomenal. I still owe you, there's going to be 2 more forthcoming emails from us. The follow-up email for last week's session and the follow-up for this one. I'm also going to include an old reference manual that ACHE used to post out, and they're very, very clear. They don't support that anymore, but it has a lot of sample questions in there. So again, we're just blasting you with sample questions and how to structure, how to look at them. And I just lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. So please be on the lookout for the SurveyMonkey. We really need your feedback, and keep us posted. Send pictures with your exam scores, and we'll post you on our slide of fame. And reach out to us if you have any questions. That's what we're here for. If you need references for your fellow application, there is a chance when you submit your fellow application between, any time of the year between March and June, end of June, you'll get a waiver on the exam fee. Even if you're not ready, take that exam. Who knows, you might pass, and it'll give you, and if you don't, then you've got a great guide for moving forward. With that, I'm going to say thank you so much for participating. There was a question about how to self-report these continuing qualified education hours. Go into ACHE, into your My ACHE site, and there's a place to record that. Also, there is a application, well, there's like a tracker now in the My ACHE site for tracking all the steps in your application. So really, you can get familiar with that. So on that note, I think we're ready for our contest. What do you think?
Sounds good. As Nora mentioned, with the SurveyMonkey, we're really interested to hear if the 5 series worked for you, 5 Saturdays. We've repeated that, but we're always, it's important for us to hear feedback. If you felt like that timing worked or didn't work, please let us know. If you'd like to see more than 5, less than 5, it's important for those going ahead of you that will be taking this. So there was a question, if we don't clear on the first attempt, how soon can we reapply? That's a good question. To take the exam.
6 months, I think. No, I don't know. We'll look that up. I'll include that in my follow-up.
We'll provide that in the parking lot. And then, thank you. Some folks are putting comments in. All right, so now in the chat room, we're going to go through, and Carol is the first guessee as to what background Carol has. Carol C. And you can even put region if you're not exactly sure which beach. We'll accept that. Okay, we've got Del Mar. Anyone else? Oh, La Jolla. We're getting closer, I think, right? Okay, Michael's background, Michael's beach. We've got a Cancun. Any other areas of the world? Okay. Okay, the general consensus is we don't know, but we'd love to visit. Nora's Beach.
I'll give you a hint. The absence of waves should be a hint.
Okay, and then Richard's Beach, Rick's. Okay, East Coast, Maine, okay. And Sasha's Beach. Sasha still with me?
I'm here.
Okay. I don't know if Lisa's still with us, but yes, Lisa's Beach, look at that wave. Hawaii, 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 good. Okay. And then my beach, you can see my background. All right, why don't we call out what we've got? Carol, where are you at?
Encinitas.
Okay. Michael, where are you at?
One, Philippines.
All right, Nora, where are you broadcasting from?
This is from Half Moon Cay in the Bahamas.
Oh, okay. Richard, I think somebody got that one. Richard, where are you? Rick,
Really?
where are you from?
Walla Walla in Mendocino County.
Okay.
Someone did say Northern California, so that was close.
And
That
Sasha,
fence
where are
that
you
makes
from?
us think of the East Coast.
Sasha shared with us, he's in West Maui. Yeah, West Maui, I think he said, correct. And then Lisa, where are you broadcasting from?
Pebble Beach.
Oh, nice. Okay. Sasha, and I'm coming to you from Kapalua Bay. All right, now we get to, please put in the chat room, Efton, great outfit. Put in the chat room who you think most represents being in island wear or beach wear at this moment in time. Just everybody put out their favorite. I do want to put a shout out to Maureen because you have had a great setup in your location, Maureen. If you're still able to show us, it looked really nice. And we, of course, love Nora's flower bouncing around as she's turning. So great,
It
great,
keeps
great.
disappearing.
All right, well, I'm going to take a look at these and I'll be sending out some swag to those people that were part of the representation. I'll take a look at the chat room and then I'll request your home address as we look at those that participated. So, and
Well,
Gloria, thank you. You're in the Philippines. Beautiful.
Beautiful. And Sherry, I just wanted to shout out for the face-to-face event that
Oh, yeah.
Solar
Thank
on
you.
the 6th. So it's 1.5 face-to-face credits. So if you can make it, that would be great. I know it's hard to get those right now. We do have an event.
I'm sorry, I keep interrupting. It's slide 52 in closing comments. A shout out for that. Plus, I know that the CAHL chapter already sent out an announcement about it as well.
Yes.
So the beauty of co-sponsoring these series.
And that's 1.5 face-to-face units, correct? There you go.
Okay, there it is.
Mhm. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you again, all, and we really appreciate your participation. Great engagement. Appreciate your participation in the chat, being part of our virtual. And I just want to thank tremendously our partnership with San Diego chapter. I want to thank Nora for all the time she spent sending out to you the information, Rick for providing us the videos from CSU, and just incredible partnership with Session, and Michael for your participation. Carol, Lisa, thank you for doing finance for us, and also for our team that supported us. Nick is not with us this morning, but he was part of our team as well from Seoul. So appreciate everybody that brought this together for us, and we do appreciate your comments, and thank you so much.
And again, keep us posted. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Take care.
I think we're still recording, right?